Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Finance and Corporate Services. We have 5 items on the agenda. We'll get right into it. Could I get a mover for the consent items? Moved by Councillor Fernandez. Any questions on consent? Councillor Gazzola. Sorry, actually, 1 second. We need a motion to ask questions on consent. I will take the motions been put forward. Those in favor? And that carries. Okay, sorry. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I'd just like to know on item number 1, dealing with the Wi-Fi network. Somewhere I read here we're into a 10-year agreement with this company. Do we have any choice on this?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We entered that agreement when we initially did the replacement for the network and telecommunications system. It established deep discounts over that period of 10 years. At this point, it is a standing agreement, and it is city is bound to buy the items that were purchased originally through that agreement from this vendor. It's still a very good agreement, and it's working very well for the city. We're getting great value for our money.
So we have no choice then, really.
For specific items that fall under the initial network gear that we had purchased through that RFP, it is an ongoing contract. There will be some, potentially, there could be other equipment that we require for this project through, for the Wi-Fi expansion that may come from another company, but we're not far enough into the planning yet to know that for certain.
Okay, but we're looking at an additional expenditure of $500,000 in total, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, how much of that would relate to the former contract, or how much of that? And how much of it is open is up for grabs? That's what I'm trying to understand. If 90% of it is not up for grabs, then we have no choice.
So we're leveraging the existing contract for those items that are part of it. There is a number of cabling and power requirements that are required to support the installation of this equipment. In terms of numbers, I'm going to say there's it's about 150 to 175,000 that would be in that category.
That we're committed to.
That is not committed to.
That's up for grabs.
Correct.
Okay, so the majority of it is covered. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Yaneski, same item?
No, item 2.
Okay, item number 2, go ahead.
Yeah, item 2, the item regarding the fireworks. I see there's a request to extend the selling from July the 1st to July the 2nd. But are we allowing fireworks to be only allowed on one day, or is there 2 or 3 days?
Ms. Daniels?
Through the chair, that would extend the date by 1, but it starts actually June 26th. We'd be adding the extra day for them.
So they can have fireworks from June 26th to July the 2nd?
Correct.
I mean, not selling them. I mean, shooting them off.
No, the display bylaw is different, but this is about selling them.
This is about selling them.
That's right.
So are we allowed, is the public allowed to shoot them off on July the 2nd, the day after Canada Day?
They are, that's correct.
Okay, so then you can still buy it on that July 2nd and still shoot them off in the evening or something.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
They can still buy them on July the 2nd and still shoot them off in the evening on July the 2nd.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, no further questions, thank you. Okay, so all items have been moved. I'm assuming we can vote on them together. Those in favor? That carries unanimously. I will also point out that item number 3 is coming on special council later today because the event is on May the 7th. Okay, move on to the discussion items. Item number 4, the LRT budget update, gas pipeline replacement. There's no presentation on this, so does anyone have any questions? Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I wanted just to ask if, when we look at this report, is the Duke Street Water to Ontario, King of Wellington, Ottawa, Charles to Mill, are those included in these financial totals?
Through the chair, the works that were completed since October 2015 that has been noted is included in the adjustment for actual cost shown on page 4-2.
So it is included, Wally.
That is correct.
Okay. And just being very careful with my questions here. Are the increased costs to us because Grand Link was behind schedule and the work was done in winter when it was originally planned for the summer?
Through the chair, the challenge of this project has been identifying the relocation of plant, the location of the new facilities, the construction issues with the congested areas in the downtown core. You can't pinpoint one specific reason or area. It's a combination of a variety of different issues. For a design build, we needed to require to find out what the design would be for our locations. Grand Lakes needed to determine what the locations were for our facilities. And that's what led to some of the delays and moving some of the works into the winter time period.
Wally, a tricky question, but did the delay relate to the fact that the LRT is running behind schedule?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of what the schedule is. I believe that they have run into delays throughout the projects, but I'm not aware of the specifics of each one of those delays.
And I understand from the report that we're negotiating these costs. Do we have any idea of the timeline of those negotiations as to when we'll get a solution as to who pays what?
Through the chair, the negotiations are ongoing. Our legal is meeting with their legal as well as the Commissioner of Transportation Services, who's in charge of the project itself. We don't have a specific timeline for that, but they are under negotiations and there have been letters sent back and forth.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I have a comment when we get to that.
Certainly. Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the capital account for the replacement of gas mains sits at $5.6 million. That this would have no, it says it would have no impact on the gas customers. If we wanted to reduce our rates again, would the money be coming out of this account or would it be coming out of the reserve account?
Mr. Malcolm?
Through the chair, the reduction in rates would depend upon what works we require to do for the next 5 years coming up. So we won't know until the budget cycle is pretty much in hand this summer. The works that we're talking about here are works that we've had to delay because the focus has been on the LRT project. These have been budgeted programs and projects as part of the budget process that we cannot get to because of the scope of the LRT project. But we will get to these projects once the LRT project has been completed. It'll just be a rearrangement as to what projects are a priority and which ones go first after the LRT is completed.
Okay. There was a piece of information you stated in there, Mr. Malcolm, that I want to make sure I'm completely understanding. You're saying that because of the LRT, there are some projects that we had planned to do, but we can't do them because of LRT.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay. Does this put any pressure on those systems or those areas that we would normally have worked on? Undue pressure or concerns that things, I mean, they're gas lines, so sure as heck hope they don't fail. But would we be concerned about that? Should we be concerned about that?
Through the chair, no, there's no immediate concern about delaying these projects for a year or two. It's just part of our normal cycle of trying to get our plant rehabilitated. In these instances here, a lot of this is based on roadworks that are by the municipality and the region. So we don't really have to move them until the region or the city proceeds with their projects as well.
Okay. The balance is $5.6 million. What is the reserve in that account? Do you know presently?
I don't know what the reserve would be in that account.
Okay. Is it possible for us to get that information, Mr. Chapman? what the reserve is in our gas works account?
Mr. Chapman?
Through the chair, you're asking about the stabilization reserve in gas delivery?
Right.
Yes, I can report that by the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't leave us completely dry by having this additional cost, though, right?
That's correct. We still have funds available to continue on with our program.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Yaneski? Oh, I think you pushed the button again. Can you push it again, please? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the questions was asked by Councillor Fernandez, already. The other question I have back on page 1 talks about winter construction work for an Ottawa gas main abandonment. Could you explain, was there a line there that just got abandoned, or did it get removed, or what happened to it? All right, could you clarify that?
With the relocation work that we had to do, there was a section of the main that basically served no purpose in that area. So we rerouted it to another side street, and this area we do not need anymore. And it's needed for the LRT to build their tracks down in that area.
So was this line abandoned, like you just sort of plugged it up and left it there, or you just totally removed it? Because I know Ottawa Street was closed there for a section, so I didn't know is this part of that job?
That is correct. Most of it is basically kept in place. Where they needed to go down, we would remove the sections that would be required for their construction, but in most cases it would be left where it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
Excuse me. You state in your report here that we're going to have to increase the budget by $2.3 million. What was the budget originally? What are we talking about in total dollars?
I'd have to get the total amount because it's changed, I believe, about 2 or 3 times. The original was probably around that $7-8 million mark.
Originally, so this is
way above what we normally
have we changed this previous to this?
Through the chair, yes. We have changed it a number of times as a design build. When we received the initial drawings from Grand Links, we based our estimates on that design. As the design progressed and changes were made for a variety of different reasons, the design changed so that we had to go back and relook at the location that our gas mains were located in and where the new location would have to be for the relocated plant. With that incurred costs. Also, we have a number of contracts going on at the same time period in the same congested area, and that caused delays as well because you have more than one party working in the area.
Okay, going back to square one though, you're telling me now that our budget for that project is in the $7 million neighborhood. What was it when we started out?
I'd have to get the original number. I don't have that with me right now.
Any idea?
I'd have to get that for you. It was started back in 2012, 2013, so I'd have to go back and see what the original was. But we can get that to you.
You state here in the second paragraph, the budget of the LRT project has substantially changed. Now, are you talking about our involvement, or are you talking about the total project?
Through the chair, the total project itself.
So do you know that? I've been trying to understand what the budget is of that project. I don't understand it. They've changed the method. It's a design-build project. So is there somewhere some understandable as to what the budget of the project is? This is not a fair question to you, but it's part of it. Like originally we talked about an $818 million project, and now I don't know what we're talking about.
Ms. Fletcher, do you want to comment?
Through the chair, I think the council member just hit the point I was going to make is this is not our project. Mr. Malcolm is here to speak to the portion of the project that is our gas relocation. So if we need more details from the project owner, we would have to go to the region for that.
I agree. It's an excellent question, but you're asking the wrong person.
Fair enough. No, I apologize. I was reading the report, and I wanted to clarify the report. Okay, now it's been clarified. Just finally on page 4.2, you for this increased budget portion, you've come up with a city share. How have you done that? On what basis?
Through the chair, the portion is based on the public highways relocation for utility work. It's based on 50% of labor and labor-saving devices being charged back to the road authority owner. The utility picks up the remaining 50% of the labor and labor-saving devices, as well as 100% of the material cost.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Vomenovich.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on that. Certainly, part of the intent of the all-council meetings that we have where regional staff provide updates on the project are to ask those kinds of questions if any of us have them. And I'm sure regional staff would have endeavored to answer them. Councillor Gazzola, I will follow up with regional staff for you and ask them to send you that financial information.
Councillor Gazzola, at 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
The LRT discussion was almost after the 11 o'clock hour, and it was fairly condensed as to the time that we had to deal with it. But I would appreciate as I imagine a lot of people would appreciate, what is the budget now? Is there, and I've asked the regional staff this, is there some kind of a reconciliation between what it was originally and what it is, whatever it is now? And again, this is, yes, it's not a local.
Thank you. And I do recall that there was a slide in that presentation that did mention at that point in time it was on budget, but I'm sure Mayor Vomenovich and Regional Council will follow up. Just one question before we get into moving in comments. I just want to be 100% clear on the table that details the city share and the regional share. So this is under the current agreement, the current rules, but we are negotiating, so this is really a way of looking at it as the worst case scenario for the City of Kitchener.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. There are no further questions. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Ioannidis. Comments? Councillor Etherington. Thanks, Mr. Malcolm.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Recognizing that we're trying to negotiate these, to me, staggering extra costs, at least $1.4 million. Taxpayers are obviously going to end up stuck with these bills, and it doesn't give me any great comfort to say, well, the bulk could be regional. It's the same pocket, the Kitchener taxpayers, regional taxpayers, they'll end up paying it. I'm still to hear, and I don't mean this as a criticism of our staff, overall, I'm still to hear a meaningful reason for such cost overruns. I have my suspicions, but I won't get into those. I don't doubt we will see more LRT cost overruns, as the LRT comes down the track. And I'm speaking as someone who is very much in favour of LRT. I think we owe taxpayers more information and better and faster reasons for these extra costs. And finally, I'm glad to see this out in a public forum, because at least that creates the opportunity for taxpayers and councillors to debate and hopefully ask for some of the answers I would very much like to see.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
I have a quick comment, but I also have another question. That I'd like to know, if we don't approve this, do we have the option to not approve this? And if we do, does that mean that the project stops?
If you're considering voting against this, I think that's an excellent question. So the question is, what happens if we don't approve this? Mr. Malcolm?
Through the chair, that would delay our relocation of the works involved, which would further delay the LRT construction. We need to, one of the projects is underway right now. The other three are going to be starting shortly. We have commitments that we need to meet to ensure that we are clear of the area before Grand Lakes proceeds with their work.
We don't really have many options on it.
Through the chair, not many, no.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, actually, just 1 second. Just before you make your comment, Mayor Rabinovich, you had one question?
One question, if I may, because I think it maybe helps shed some light on this, because, I mean, we all obviously struggle when additional dollars are involved. But the reason we're dealing with this is because we happen to be a public entity that still owns our gas utility. And so my understanding is the same issues that we're dealing with, quite frankly, the region has to deal with a private entity in Waterloo, which is obviously Union Gas. And they would have whatever negotiations they have with the private entity. The private entity would have to incur whatever costs they negotiate with the region, because the region is permitted to go ahead with their project regardless. And then the private entity, without sort of any public discussion, would factor that into their future billings, presumably. Is that correct, as you understand it?
Through the chair, yes. The private entities are faced under the same act and relocation clause as we are as a gas utility for the city of Kitchener. They have to pay for relocation of costs regardless of what the project is and whatever municipal road authority has in mind in regards to expanding the road.
So if we didn't own the gas utility, or if this was in a portion in South Kitchener, let's say that's under Union or Consumers, I think it's Consumers down in Union? Okay.
Mr. Chapman, do you want to comment? No? Okay.
They would be dealing for that portion of it.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I had a couple more people. We're out of question period. I allowed the two, but are there questions or comments? Okay. Councillor Gazzola, can you hold off on your comments? Councillor Yaneski, question.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the questions, the answers that came out from the questions that were asked, I'm just wondering, in terms of we don't approve this, and we're talking 2.3 million, and when I look at the statement that Councillor Gazzola brought out, that the budget has substantially changed over in terms of the statement here, and if the region is $8.18 million, as that was the budget, so add on another 2.3, that makes it 820 million. Is that, or is this totally a different figure that is absorbed by the city?
Again, Councillor Yaneski, these are questions that that's a regional question. We don't know what the region's built into their contingencies. They may have the $2 million that difference in their contingency. The point is we don't know. So that's a question of regional government, not our staff.
So we're going to be approving 2.3 million. That's, I don't know whether part or not part of the.
This motion or this recommendation is to do the work, and we're in the process of negotiating the overages. So the numbers you see here are the worst case scenario for us, pending negotiation.
This is the worst case scenario?
Yes.
So does that mean you'll not come back and ask for more money next year as we're still going along with this project?
Mr. Malcolm?
Through the chair, we will not be coming back to ask for any more funds. This is based on actual construction costs that we've incurred so far. We have the final design from Grand Lakes. We know exactly what we need to do to relocate the plant. We don't see any future requirement to come back to council for any further funds based on this report.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now in comments. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick, brief comment, and actually the mayor led into it with his questions also. I don't see that we have any choice but to approve this. The project has to go on. The worst case thing that can happen is if the project gets another delay. But I do want to point out that this is going to cost the taxpayers, not the taxpayers, the customers of Kitchener Utilities money down the road, and we're going to have to pay for it. This is not, although it's being found out of a capital works reserve or capital works funds that have been set aside. Those funds are going to have to be replenished, and they're going to and the user is going to have to pay for it down the road. So this is another cost that our particular taxpayers, and as pointed out in Waterloo, the same thing is going to happen there with the customers of Union Gas. So it's another cost of the LRT.
Thank you. Mr. Chapman?
Through Mr. Chair, I can answer the two questions that were posed. First, Councillor Fernandez asked what the ending balance was in stabilization for gas delivery. It was essentially break even. There was a $77,000 surplus. And in terms of Councillor Gazzola's question about our original budget for LRT gas main relocation, it was $5.5 million in 2013. $3.15 million was city and $2.34 million was region.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Yes, thank you, Chair Davey. I'm going to reiterate some of Councillor Gazzola's points. I think the bottom line here is we really don't have much of a choice, and just to pander and try to have any delays with this, which just end up costing the taxpayer extra funds, and at the end of the day, they are all the same taxpayer. So I think we should just move on with this and not incur any further costs than need be.
Thank you. Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, I'm not happy where we're going through on this, but I mean, we sort of have a gun pointed to our head with no other options, that we sort of got to prove it. And of course, the statement here says that the project has changed substantially, and I guess that impacts us as well, because now we got to pay some more. And hopefully, Mr. Malcolm is correct that we doesn't have to come back here anymore to ask for more money from other changes that may unfold that may be unexpected. But anyways, I'm not happy with it, but I'll still support it in the end.
Councillor Etherington?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I don't know, has anyone moved this yet?
Yes, Councillor Ioannidis.
Okay. I was just going to say I'll hold my nose and vote in favour of it because we have no choice. But certainly in my case, it would be voting in favour of it under protest.
Okay, a recorded vote's been called. I'll just comment. I think I agree with my colleagues on council. This is something we need to approve, because not approving it just makes the situation worse and would likely cost everyone more money and time. Having said that, the region are our partners, and I am confident that we will be able to come to a negotiated settlement that we're content with, because we are in this together at the end. So a recorded vote has been called. And that carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to the second item, animating 44 Gaukel Street, second floor for startups and the arts. There is no presentation. This was handed out along with our caucus document. So questions of staff. Councillor Ioannidis.
Yes, thank you, Chair Davey. My question is pertaining to, have we ever done other agreements sort of similar to this with other organizations?
Ms. DiDonato?
Through the chair, we have similar agreements on the main floor with Conestoga College currently.
Okay. Have we not leased out other spaces within the city with other organizations? I'm just thinking of Treehouse, for example. Like, we've done this before, right? Like, we've put our spaces out there for other organizations.
Through the chair, a Treehouse would be another example of the old core gallery that was leased out with a sublease agreement.
Okay. Mr. Chair, when it's appropriate, I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Etherington?
Just comments, Mr. Chair. I was going to move it. It's in my ward, but I just have comments when the time is appropriate.
Okay, you can click back in and I will let you know. We're still in questions. Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, just a question around the affordable rates for the arts community. Will staff be keeping in close communication with the subleasers to keep tabs on the lease rates?
Through the chair, we'll be working closely with the Arts Build Ontario and with the Accelerator Centre to ensure that there's a fair approach, and also I understand as well, finding out more about the groups that will be in the space and to ensure that the rates are definitely affordable.
Okay, and so to what degree is our staff going to be involved in the negotiations or in bringing new tenants to the space?
Through the chair to date, it's been a collaborative process to determine groups and organizations that have these needs. So we would be involved as far as the communications would continue in that vein, although I would say the tenants and the Arts Build Ontario and Accelerator Centre will be the lead. Accelerator Centre specifically will be the lead on the tenant, and we would give them that amount of leadership, but be there to support those fair and affordable rates.
Okay, thank you. I'll have comments when the time is right.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the space at 40 Fergalco, second floor, how long has that been vacant?
Oh, pardon me. Mr. Bennett?
Sorry. It's been vacant since February of 2014.
Okay. And
2015.
By keeping it vacant, it still costs the city, does it
Yes.
not? Okay. And the Accelerator Centre, so this is a business model or operation that's been quite successful in the city of Waterloo, where they're currently homed, right?
That's correct.
And yeah, I was going to get to that. And Councillor Knightis was just reminding me, and I think I realize this, but I just want to confirm, this is a not-for-profit organization, correct?
That's correct.
Good. And in the proposed space, now we get told, obviously, that as emerging companies, startup companies, space is always limited, or affordable space is always limited. And then the arts community has always said, again, affordable space is also a factor in the marketplace right now. This would help to solve both of those issues?
Yes, this would provide space for arts and culture organizations at a very affordable and reasonable rate.
How many people are we expecting when they're fully operational that this could accommodate?
The Accelerator Centre could probably accommodate about 100 employees in that space.
In that space?
Yes.
So that would be 120 people additional to the downtown core that wouldn't be there right now, I'm supposing, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that would also help to support the existing businesses in the core that are struggling right now, obviously, because of the construction with the LRT.
Yes, it would help to animate the downtown core.
So is this a footprint? Are we envisioning that we're hopeful that over time the Accelerator Centre would grow from this, similar to what they've been able to achieve in Waterloo as well? Or is our hope the same?
Yes, we certainly would like to see the Accelerator Centre grow their programming in downtown Kitchener, and this would be a means to help accommodate that.
And as the staff report articulates, does the costs do significantly are a small factor to the tremendous benefits that would be achieved through this partnership?
Yes, they are.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, a couple of questions about a little bit of background. How much money in the last year have we contributed to startups with grants? like this?
It would be approximately, based from November of 2015, about $800,000.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you only because I wrote down the $500,000 for Velocity, $300,000 for Communitech, $75,000 for this project, and then $50,000 for the maker spaces, which comes to $925,000.
Okay, we're including the one that we haven't even approved yet, but yeah, it's. I think
I'm just saying, if we were approving it, that would be included in that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So close to $1 million in grants we've handed out actually in the last 4 months.
Yes, since December of 2015.
Okay. What was the cost for the studio project? What did we grant to that? And I know, and my understanding is they don't pay a lease or rent either.
Ms. DiDonato?
Through the chair, just by my recollection, it's been on a basis of cost recovery over time. So the Conestoga College payments were equivalent to the cost of the area expenses for the main floor, including hydro and HVAC. And there was an investment at the beginning to renovate the space to allow for occupancy.
And what was that cost?
I don't have that figure handy, but we could get that to you.
Okay. I think that's important to know. Arts Build Ontario, although I think it sounds like it's something connected to our province, Arts Build Ontario is actually a private company. Is that
Through
correct?
the chair, it's a not-for-profit entity that is not part of the province, but may have some provincial funding as well as foundational funding for their activities to serve the province.
Okay, I think that the name is a bit of a misnomer. I think people think that it's connected directly to the province, with nothing to do with the funding. When we talk about the issues with regards to the building itself, and I know we've had some concerns about the functionality of some of the systems within that building. What mechanism do we have, this is outside of that statement I just made, what mechanism do we have to learn about which startups don't make it?
The AC, the Accelerator Center, it's going to be their responsibility to seek out startups that need to scale up in that space, and they would be directly involved with that.
So they would seek out the startups in that space that are at the next level. I know that there's a catchphrase that we use for that.
They were scaling up.
Scale up, right. But do we ever have a mechanism to know that, say, for example, they have 50 scale-ups there? How many of them go on to become viable businesses? How many of them are gobbled up by larger entities, and how many actually just don't make it? Do we ever come up with those exact numbers?
I don't have the exact figures to support that at this point in time.
Okay.
But I can get that for you.
And I mean, I know that you've provided for us information from Deloitte about the economic benefit to these kind of projects. I just want to have a better understanding about, which ones really actually turn into Moy Vision or Vidyard or the one that just escapes me all of a sudden, ClearPath. There's always a certain percentage that don't make it at all. And I think we have to be very honest and upfront about the fact that we are granting money to businesses that now I understand that the AC, Accelerator Center, and Arts Build will be taking that funding that we're giving them, and they're going to be leasing out that space, even though they're a non-for-profit. That's right, isn't that?
The Accelerator Center will be on the head lease for the second floor, and they will lease out space to startups that are in the Accelerator
Apparently the
Center
alarm's
program.
on the clock. Sorry, please continue.
Okay.
That should fix it. Sorry, Continue your thought if you can.
Wasn't sure what was going on there. The Accelerator Center will be on the head lease, and they will be leasing out space to startups that are in the Accelerator Center's program.
Okay, my time's up, but if I might come back in. Thanks.
Very good. Councillor Gazzola?
You gave the wrong answer, that's why the bell went. The CAM on the second floor is $45,000. Is there a CAM also for the first floor?
Yes, there is.
How much is it?
It's approximately $43,000.
So we've got $86,000 in CAM. Can you just give a little more detail as to what that is for?
That would be predominantly for heating and cooling.
Heating and cooling?
Yes.
Electricity is not in that?
Electricity as well, yes.
Okay. Anything else that's in there? Or?
Those would be the major items.
I want to, Councillor Fernandez already asked you this, but I just want to clarify it. We are in fact giving free rent to Accelerator Center, and they're, between them and the Arts Build, who are going to sublease, they're going to bring in over $300,000 in rent. They're getting free rent from us, but they're charging $300,000 to others. Is that right?
Based off the budget, over 2 years, in year one, revenue that they would bring in would be about $110,000, and in year two it would be $198,000.
Now, is that similar to the first floor? Is that the same kind of setup where who is it that has the first floor?
Conestoga College has
they're paying no rent?
Conestoga is not paying rent.
And are they collecting rent?
They are collecting rent from the 3 Accelerator Center companies that are on the main floor.
Do we have any idea how much that might be?
I don't have that figure at this time.
On page 5.1, you state that it is unlikely that a private tenant will assume leasehold costs. Okay, and that's a good, solid statement. But have we tried to look to the private sector to lease out this space?
We haven't approached the private sector at this point in time, but based off of historical scenarios, such as short-term lease, we know that it's very difficult to get companies to invest in leasehold improvements for a very short period of time.
But you didn't try.
That's correct.
Yeah, you haven't tried. Okay. The other thing, just to, I suppose I should know this, but what is on the bottom of page 5.2, the Internet of Things? What is that?
The Internet of Things is...
Everybody knows what that is? I don't.
Okay.
I can take that one if you like. The Internet of Things, Councillor Gazzola, is the future direction to give any sort of anything you might want to censor an IP address. So, for example, imagine in the future you buy a new fridge, and your fridge would actually have an IP address that's connected to the internet that could notify you on your cell phone that you're out of milk.
All right,
that's an example.
You're using my time. That's fine. Just one final question. To whom do these organizations, such as Accelerator Center and Arts Build, to whom do they answer?
The Accelerator Center has an independent board of directors.
I'm sorry, they have a board of directors?
The Accelerator Center has an independent board of directors.
And to whom do they answer? Do they answer to the University of Waterloo, or is there any connection there?
This was spun out of the University of Waterloo, but it's not a formal part of the university. That's why it has its own independent board of directors.
Who appoints the board?
I can find that out.
Yeah. All right. I have some comment after.
No problem. Councillor Marsh? Oh, no, sorry. Cue back in, and Councillor Etherington, you had comments as well. Councillor Galloway-Seelock, questions still?
Yeah, I have just a couple, just with regards to some of the art space. So we're planning on leasing to the Accelerator Center, who will then in turn lease to the art space. Is it clear from the lease that this is a short-term solution to assist the arts?
Through the chair, the lease details should represent that the space is going to be shared on a 50 basis, and some of it will be shared. So I imagine the lease will express those terms.
And our lease is going to be explicitly clear that this is only on a short-term basis, barring the failure of our boiler. Is that right?
That's correct.
And how do we plan on clearly communicating this with the rest of the community, especially the extended arts community, who won't be privy to necessarily all of the lease details? That this is possibly only a 2-year or less time frame, that there may be space available to the arts in order to utilize, but it could end at any given time over the course of the next year and a half.
So being on the head lease, the Accelerator Center will have to disclose that in their sublease to their tenants.
Right. So what is our plan from the city's perspective to communicate this to the broader community, that this clearly is a short-term solution, that we're trying to assist the arts, at least in 50% of this space?
Or put another way,
Communication plan.
Could we have a communication
Right.
plan to ensure that this is seen as a bridge solution, I guess?
We will engage in a communication plan to ensure the arts community is aware that the space is available.
Really important. I don't know that I want to get into details about the boiler, but I guess I'm trying to inform a question. The boiler is something that's really out of our control that we can try and maintain, but could go at any time, and that's why this is short term. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's part of why we haven't gone out to the private sector to try and lease this space, because we would have to upgrade that boiler, and it would be at a significant cost in order to do so. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Rabinovich?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, I guess, ask some follow-up questions in terms of the thinking around the need of scale-up space, and also specifically about some of the companies we've seen come out of the accelerator. So in terms of, as we consider the whole ecosystem, Mr. Bennett, and we've got the startups and so on that are in the tannery and surrounding buildings, how important is the scale-up space in order to grow the overall ecosystem and see larger successes going forward?
It's incredibly important to have space available to allow companies that have gone through their initial incubation through either their Velocity or the Communitech programs, to have that space to be able to grow to the next level and have the mentorship and support that they need available in order to help those companies scale up and move on to the next level, like a ClearPath Robotics or a MyoVision.
Okay, and so that gets me into my next question, which is, we've seen a number of companies come through the accelerator that have scaled up, that have grown, and are now an integral part of the regional economy and the Kitchener economy. I mean, I think of companies like KIK, which has become a billion-dollar company and is up in Waterloo. But more importantly, I think about companies that are in Kitchener, in suburban areas of Kitchener. I think of ClearPath, which I believe is in Councillor Galloway-Seelock's ward. I think of MyoVision, which is in Councillor Gazzola's ward. Do you have any idea of how many people those companies are employing today?
So, excuse me, currently ClearPath employs about 100 people, and with some of the new innovations they've had, they're actually looking at scaling up and doubling their workforce over the next 18 months. And MyoVision has about currently 80 employees and is looking to grow to 150 employees over the next year.
Okay, and then there's another company that was known by Tribe HR, and they're an accelerator graduate as well. They were purchased by NetSuite, but that company exists in our city as well, does it not?
Yes, it does.
And it's in the downtown?
That's correct.
And how many employees do they roughly have?
They currently have about 180 employees, and they're looking at scaling up to over 300.
Okay. So just in regards to, those three companies as an example, do we have any idea of how much property tax revenue they generate approximately in their current situations?
So ClearPath would probably be in the range of about $35,000.
To the city?
To both the city and the region.
So then it would be divided up, so we'd be about a quarter of that.
That's correct.
And then there'd be a certain number for MyoVision, a certain number for Tribe HR, and so on. So, I guess the point that I'm trying to make with it, it's not unreasonable to suggest that these kinds of investments allow these companies to grow and to flourish, that then go on into private sector space that generates property tax revenue for the city, brings employees to the community that end up paying either rent or buying houses that pay property taxes to the city. And these are companies we otherwise likely wouldn't have. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Singh, are you question or comment? Comment, and Councillor Fernandez isn't here. Okay, could I get, Councillor Ioannidis, you'd already moved this, right? Okay, and if Councillor Galloway-Seelock, you want to add, I'll just jump quickly to you so everyone can, I have a bunch of people on the comment list.
Yeah,
so
I won't make any comments. I just wanted to add, I think it's, staff have already agreed to it, but I just feel like we need to strengthen it with a motion that staff embark on a communication plan to make the community aware this space is a short-term solution to add some art space immediately while the city looks at larger, it's supposed to be longer-term solutions.
Okay. So there are 5 people in the queue with comments in addition to myself, beginning with Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't think of a better downtown partnership than this proposal between arts and culture and high tech in the two communities in our core, in my ward. We've talked for a long while, and I think we've talked enough about providing adequate support to high tech and to arts and culture in our downtown. And I think now it's time we walk the walk, put up some money and exercise a little courage to push this through. And hopefully I would add that I would like to see more cash support from the high-tech community that demands this high standard of arts and culture in the community where they are growing. So I would hope we would look to them for some support. This also allows us, in my opinion, to make much better use of a city-owned vacant space and still allows the sale of what will be a multi-million-dollar property, the Gawker Street property, when LRT arrives in 2017. This will give us the opportunity to establish a downtown arts culture foundation that we know we've seen in many other urban areas. This type of arts and culture encouragement has helped create the soul of some very thriving inner cities. And I would urge councillors to put aside their negativity and show a little vision about the future of our city and the partnership that this and what it will play in our future as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This council, in approving the Kitchener Economic Development Strategy, put forward a mandate for itself to foster business environment that stimulates innovation, jobs creation, helping startups, entrepreneurs establish and grow their business. In doing so, we've also invested in our community. Places like the Velocity Garage, as well as Communitech, and the expansion of Communitech. The startups that come out of those incubators that are scaling up go to places like the Accelerator Center. And from there, as Mayor Voinovich very well outlined, they too will go out and take over larger leasehold space here in the community. And so, giving back, paying back for those initial subsidies they may have received through the foresight of our community and past and this council. And it only makes sense for us to want to stimulate and want to support organizations like the Accelerator Center to be able to broaden what they're doing in the city of Waterloo, in their current space, and grow here in the city of Kitchener as well, in a small footprint, but hopefully something that will grow and broader even more. So clearly, this is something that we can't afford to lose, and for a small cost, we are significantly going to get much more dividends back.
Councillor Marsh?
Thank you. I'm just wanting to comment on this motion. I am delighted that this project will proceed. I think that this initiative will be warmly welcomed by the arts community because it will go a long way to provide a short-term solution for many arts organizations and try to facilitate the meeting of the need of much needed additional space for arts organizations, but also for scale-ups. In a way, this is a special partnership because so much of our knowledge-based economy has focused on the STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and math, whereas I think we can all recognize and this is, that this arts addition can add a much-needed factor. So rather than STEM, we can have a focus on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. I think that really my main interest here beyond those points is that we are going to be seeing additional affordable rents for the arts groups and or individuals who are looking to contribute to our creating a vibrant arts and culture scene in our city. I encourage all of my colleagues to vote on this, and I ask for a recorded vote.
Thank you. Councillor Fernandez, having in the queue, did you want to comment? Please.
Although I understand that there are economic benefits to startups. They become scale-ups and they become independent businesses, and they find a space within our city, whether it's in the downtown or other areas of the city. But I do still have a problem. I'm going to just backtrack. I also think it's important that we find the solutions to our arts and cultures community. We've heard last week from JM Drama that rehearsal space is a challenge, that they've had to turn away numerous groups who want to use and find rehearsal space. But yet, we're looking at a space, possibly 18 months, possibly 4 years. I can't imagine arts groups coming into a facility and saying, well, guys, you know what, we can do this and this and this, but if the boiler goes, we're going to have to, everything's going to have to be picked up and moved out. I'm just not comfortable with that kind of loosey-goosey approach to what's, we want to give the arts community a good, solid footing and a foundation to carry on and to build and to grow those arts and culture events. And whether it's musicians whose possibly their equipment could get damaged, or it's a group that are practicing for a play and they're in the middle of a rehearsal and they're, one day away from a dress rehearsal and then boom, they're out of there. I'm sorry, I just don't feel comfortable offering half a branch. Here you go. Oh, sorry, in 18 months it's gone. And maybe that's not the right way to look at it. But I'm also not comfortable with giving away over $1 million in grants. I think we have to be really cautious that economic development has a lot of different faces, but it seems to be right now that it's the Accelerator Center's face and the Communitex face and the Velocities face that are getting a big chunk of money in the last since November. So I don't want this to be misunderstood that I don't support the concept and the idea of having the spaces for startups and scale-ups and for our arts centers, but I really want to see us do a long-term solution for our arts and culture. We know that there is a building in the city that could possibly offer that option. Why are we not looking at that instead of doing this interim, partially half-baked possibility? So, and with no disrespect to staff, I know that they're trying to find solutions, and maybe the half-baked comment was disrespectful, and I apologize for that. I know you guys work hard trying to accommodate a lot of stuff, but I cannot at this time support this. My last comment, looking at the time that I have left, is this budget. And I guess I feel like we're rounding up numbers here. Marketing $10,000, programming and events. At least we have a little bit more details of 29,340. What does that mean? Where are the details here? Occupancy costs, cleaning, 17,000. Really? Maybe I don't have the right concept here. Maybe I'm not understanding. I just don't think that I can support another grant to a similar organization at this particular time.
Councillor Annetis.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I'm very pleased to put forward this motion with the recommendation that staff put forward. I think, from the previous member of council's comments about not to support this, I think it would make sense if time did sit still. Then it would make sense. But we have to run a city here. Things don't just sit still. Things move around. It's moving parts, and the need has been clearly pointed to us that there is a need for space. And again, this is a short-term solution. We're not asking here for a long-term solution. That's just the art component to this. I mean, if we look at what the Accelerator Center's focus is on digital media, and if you look at digital media from Invest in Canada, a document that the federal government put forward, digital media employs 50,000 people in Canada. It's a $7.5 billion annual in revenues that it brings to Canada. And more importantly, which was kind of shocking, that the Internet of Things was asked what that was. To me, that's probably the biggest thing that will happen to this community and to the world in the next 5+ years. That will change the world dramatically, and for us to have a piece of that and to have a focus on that, and so that we're in the forefront of innovation is rather important. And to me, I don't understand how that was not known. Newcastle in Australia had a program called Renew Newcastle, in which they had vacant core space, and it was a program to find short and medium-term uses for their vacant spaces. And when they offered these spaces for free, it ended up being a huge success for their core, and it created a lot of vibrancy. And I see this as a component similar to that. Finally, I think we have an opportunity here to bring a superb organization such as the Accelerator Center here into our downtown to get a feeler of how our downtown is and see, that, in my opinion, this will create further investment by them when they see how great this community is down here in the core.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah. This project that we're looking at, in itself, it's not a bad project. I can support things like this. It's making use of right now it is vacant space. I'd like to see us look at other alternatives. But and I have no problem that we need to do things with economic development. That's important to our community. Unfortunately, I'm seeing now it's become our focus. Everything is economic development. I've never understood that is our main mandate as a municipality. It wasn't. It was about a year ago. We were sitting here listening to a report on the state of our infrastructure, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to make it to the next morning or not. It was all going to blow up. But that's sort of been set on the back burners. Everything now is focused on economic development, getting jobs. The arts community needs our help, no question about it. But currently we've got so many balls in the air. We're looking at the old Legion building on Ontario Street. We're looking at the Registry Theatre. We're looking at ways to try to make the Centre in the Square more attractive and affordable for our arts community. All of these balls in the air, and here's another one. So we're currently looking, in the last few months, in excess, almost $2.5 million for economic development. $500,000 to the Velocity Center, $300,000 right away to Communitech, with the 1.2 committed. I know you're going to say, well, we haven't given that away, but I challenge you not to give it away a few months down the road. And now we're looking at another $300,000 a year, $50,000 to the museum for Make It. I mean, that's become our main focus for Beam. And I'm sorry, but there are other things. There are other not as fancy things like water and sewers and things like that, and parks and trails that we really should be putting some kind of money into that. I have an opposing viewpoint, which some members of council say that's just negative and short little vision. Well, I don't even know what the Internet of Things are, so how can I be expected to be a visionary? Bottom line is that I will not be supporting this additional proposal before us to put more dollars into economic development.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I'm really enthused about this. As Councillor Galloway-Sealock's motion puts forth, this is a short-term solution. We know that. And staff are working on a solid long-term solution. But we have a vacant space. We have immediate needs for both our arts and culture and our startup community. We can use this space on the short-term basis while long-term solutions are searched out and solidified. We know that our arts and culture groups need affordable, usable rehearsal and storage space, administration space, studio and workshop space. We know that. This provides some of that for them. Yes, it is short term, but the long term is being worked on. On the tour of that building, when we visited Alert Labs, they're in the very, very back of that building in a very small space. They can't wait to get upstairs and expand with all that's available up there. The building is in good shape. There's things there that Everest College has left over as far as furnishing goes. That's all going to help. Not all startups are going to succeed. We know that, but we want to give them every chance to succeed. We're going to bring more employment and economic benefit to our city. This, to me, is not a giveaway. This is a good investment, and it further enhances our identification as an innovation destination. I'm really enthused and excited to support it.
Thank you, Mayor Verbenovich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too will be supporting the motion in front of us as well as the amendment. I believe these investments are part of a balanced approach that this council has taken into making investments into areas that have been identified by our community as priorities for our community. Whether we're talking about infrastructure, and last I recall from the budget meetings that I sat in, there are substantive dollars being put into roads, sewer pipes, water pipes, and other key infrastructure in the city. There are investments being put into quality of life infrastructure in our community, whether it's park improvements, new trails, whether it's seeing the development of an expansion of community centers and new parks in growing parts of the city. All of that worked itself into the budget. Just like this is part of the budget that we approved and that we're dealing with as an initiative today. I think there's very few opportunities for us as a city, as a council, to shape and transform our community with the kinds of foundations that are necessary to ensure the viability of our community for future generations. We could very easily sit back and allow the world to pass by us and allow things to happen and say, you know what, it's up to future councils, future generations to deal with these issues and not address them. I'm not prepared to do that. I think the reason we were elected was to make tough decisions. This, in my mind, is not a tough decision. It's actually a very logical decision from an investment point of view. And it's part of a balanced approach to the economic development and job creation responsibilities that we have together with our other partners, both at the province and at the federal government. Yes, a big focus is on the new economy because that's where job growth is happening, whether we're talking about technology, innovation, and so on, advanced manufacturing, the Internet of Things. But we haven't focused our energies exclusively on that. I look at the fact that, over the last couple of years, we've been able to work with companies like Haru DevTech, Beamer Box, Mitchell Plastics, all companies that are growing, creating new jobs in our community, in traditional manufacturing areas, in our community and in our region. And so this is a further investment to see that growth happen, to provide an opportunity to assist companies to scale. And more importantly, it's a great partnership to also strengthen the other area that we know is so important in terms of creating a strong digital ecosystem, and that's the arts and culture. And this allows us to take a space that we have and support both of these areas in a way that is part of our responsibility. I would have hoped that it's unanimous, but I recognize that there are different views around this horseshoe, and that's partially what makes democracy a wonderful thing. But in the end, I hope that certainly this moves forward so that we can continue to see our community move in a positive direction. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would ask also for a recorded vote.
Thank you. Councillor Yaneski.
Yes, thank you. I did have a tour of the facility back a week ago or so and saw the buildings, which is in pretty good shape for a federal building that initially built back in the 60s. And but its latest layout as the second floor was more for an educational setup and to be used for arts groups. It would fit for some of them, but not for all. And rehearsal space would be rather difficult, having seen the layout of some of the facilities. And so I would question that in terms of as a short-term solution, whether that would be good for the arts people or not. I know we have a boiler issue with the building, and that sort of causes a concern as in terms of timing or uncertainty for the future. And I'm not really totally happy in terms of how we are addressing the financial component. I feel that we have, as pointed out by other councillors, we've been giving money away to other startup groups, and some people think that's the way to go. And I think that, to some degree it may be beneficial, but I think the way we've been handing out the money, I think it's not in the right direction, especially when we're approaching the $1 million figure. Here we have another example. There's no rent being collected by the city. Of course, there's some maintenance costs that will be coming in that comes to us, but then nevertheless, there's no rent. Meanwhile, the accelerator people will be collecting rent from the arts groups, and we don't get a portion of that at all. Plus that, we're giving out another $50,000 to the group as those figures add up. And as I would see it, basically, we're giving away another kitchen sink. So I'm not prepared to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, I see this as a good investment in our community. I had some initial concerns when we first learned of this opportunity because we have spent significant funds in the recent past on the tech sector. But I am also reminded that of the money that we are giving to these organizations, not to startups, but to organizations that support startups, is the added value that we get through the leverage of funds that they're able to leverage. So if we're giving an organization $500,000, they're actually leveraging it at much more in the millions than just our $500,000. And so that gives me much more comfort in investing in these organizations, which then in support can help our economic development and drive our community and making sure it's successful. Having said that, I also appreciate that we were able to push back and get a better bottom line for the city in our negotiations, and I think that's really important. But what this really does, not only for the Accelerator Center, but for me, is that we get art space immediately at affordable rates. And this is a short-term solution while we look at the broader long-term solutions. We are the ones at council that gave staff the direction to look at our city facility and do a comprehensive community engagement plan. We were the ones that gave that direction. That's why it's taking longer, and I think this helps fill that void in the shorter term. So I don't think this is intentional. This is not just let's go out and do this from an art standpoint. Let's do it in the short term as we work on our longer term piece. And that's why I thought it was really important to add this amendment or addition to the motion. So for me, I think the benefit and the investment is what's really important from both the Accelerator Center side and the arts side. I think it's going to bring great benefit to those organizations, but also to our community, and help to continue to instill us as a forward-thinking community that's going to help to enhance our economic development moving forward.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Most of what I would have said has already been said by other members of council. I will be supporting it. This is, no one's saying no to a long-term solution on the art side of this. What we are saying is, hey, look what we can do for you right now in the interim solution. We have a space that is probably not, it's probably not smart for us to use it in any longer-term fashion, especially in light of the fact that the lease expires coinciding with the LRT coming through. I think that's a very important point. In the meantime, we are going to look to find some more permanent solutions, but saying no to this is simply saying, in my mind, saying no to some badly needed art space. On the economic development side, I think it's been thrown about by just about everyone that understands economic development that we need to start getting the technical people colliding with the artistic people, and we're forcing it in this instance at what I see as a very minimal cost. So I will certainly be supporting this, and it is my hope that someday some startup comes out of an initiative we make like this and goes on to create even more employment. We can point to that and say, look what we helped to do. So, recorded vote's been called. It's been moved by Councillor Anitis. Oh, sorry. Scratch the vote. Can we start again? We have to vote on the amendment first before us. So again, the amendment is that, well, it's before you. Okay, the voting is open on the amendment. Those in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. And on the base recommendation, main motion, voting is open. Those in favor? And opposed? And that motion carries as well. That adjourns this meeting. We'll reconvene at 3 p.m. for community infrastructure services. Thank you.